This is part 2 of Learn Lightroom 5. In part 1, we jumped right into the Develop module and we processed this photograph. This was the start, where we started with the raw file, and this is where we are right now. We did that just using the different functions in Lightroom, and we didn't touch any of the tools. In this video, I'm going to show you most of these tools up here. And let's get started. I hit the Y key, and I'll come back to my full screen. I could hit Y again. You could go back to show you the before and after, so you could just hit Y back and forth to toggle between the two. We'll start out with cropping. Typically I'd probably crop earlier than this. I'm not really showing you my true workflow. In video 3, we're going to do another photograph, and I'm going to do it from beginning to end and do it as though I was the way I always do my photographs. So you'll see my workflow. But for now, in this one, as I mentioned, I'm just going to show you the tools. This crop tool we did touch on earlier in part 1. I straightened the photograph by using the angle control, and check out part 1 and if you're interested in that. Right now though, we're going to crop this. When you initially turn on the crop tool, it comes up with this grid pattern. Hopefully you could see it on the video. Very faint lines. It's in the rule of thirds. You want something important or interesting, hopefully where the lines intersect. There are other overlay patterns in Lightroom. You just hit the O key and you'll toggle between all the different patterns. I hit the O key once and I came to this rectangle pattern. And same thing here. You want something interesting in the into where the points the lines intersect, or in these two triangles on the end and this square in the middle. If possible. Now, in this photograph actually might work better for this pattern, but let me show you the rest. Hit O again, and you have the triangle overlay. Again, where points touch, or lines touch, I should say. Try to get something interesting there. This too you could flip. You hit Shift O, and you could flip it. So just hit Shift O to flip it. Hit O again, and we have the golden ratio. This is very similar to the rule of thirds and sometimes gets confused with the rule of thirds. But this isn't in equal thirds. This is 40, 20, 40, vertical and in horizontal. But it's the same thing. You want something where these lines intersect. You want something interesting there. Hit O again, and we have the Fibonacci sequence, this kind of curled line, and in this you want something interesting right where that little Fibonacci sequence begins, right there. You hit Shift O on this one and you could flip it, and I think it flips 8 different ways. So you just try to flip it around until you get it where you want it, and then you crop your picture. You want the point of interest right here, maybe giraffe's eye or something you'd have right there. Okay, hit O again, and we come up to this patterns here of if you're going to be printing 2x3s, 5x7s, 4x5s. In this instance, this helps you size your picture so it will print properly. Hit Shift O, and it will shift from the vertical to the horizontal. And hit O again, and we come up with this tight grid pattern. And this is just not so much crop overlay, but to help you make sure everything's level, that your verticals are vertical, horizontals are horizontal. And when you hit O, finally you're back to the rule of thirds. Now I mentioned we'll probably use this one. So what you do is there's these little handles all around the photograph. You could just drag them in. If you make a mistake, don't worry about it. Everything you do in Lightroom is non-destructive. So you make a mistake, you could always go back and fix it. No big deal. In this case too, if you want to keep proportional, see, I could drag it like kind of like this all over the place. But let's say I want to keep my proportions. Hold the Shift key in when you do this, and it will stay where you put it. Okay. So what we're going to do is I'd like this to be in this triangle area there. So we'll try to bring that up. Oops. Bring this over. I'm using a Wacom tablet and it's acting a little wacky at the moment. And maybe bring this up a little more. Well, for the sake of argument, let's just leave it there. Of course, on your own photograph, you could spend a lot more time trying to get it just right. So that's the crop tool. This next tool is the clone tool. This is if you have something unwanted in the picture, you could get rid of it. Now it comes with this brush here, and you could size this brush by hitting the bracket keys on your keyboard. The left bracket makes it smaller, and the right bracket makes it bigger. You also could size it over here. As you could see it to the right of my screen there. What you do is you want to make it just a little bigger than whatever you want to clone out. And this is unique to Lightroom 5. You just paint on something and it will sample another area. If you like that sample right where it is, you could just hit enter, and I kind of like where it is. If I didn't like it, I could move it. But I kind of liked where it was. And just hit enter. And just like that, it's gone. Now, there is a person over here. And let's say I don't, whoops. I don't want that person in this picture. Just take them out. And hit enter. Okay, and that's that. That isn't so good, but you know, you get the idea. The red eye tool we're not going to use, obviously. There's nobody in here with red eyes. This is the graduated filter tool, and this is as though you had a graduated filter on your camera. You could simulate it in Lightroom. And what I'll show you here is if you hold the Alt key in, or the Option key in, you could reset it. See how this effect turns to reset. So it sets these all back to 0. What I want to do, let's say I want to make this a little darker, so I could turn my exposure down a full stop. And you go up here and you just pull down. Now you can see you could angle it how you like, kind of like it like that. Now one thing, if you pull it down while you hold the Shift key in, it will come down perfectly straight. It won't angle like this. So when you're happy with it where you have it, hit the Enter key. And you could adjust it now. Let's say I want to make it real bright. I want to make it real bright. I want to make it darker. I could change the color temperature, stuff like that. But we'll just leave it right there and hit close. The next tool over is the radial filter. This is like adding a spotlight, or you could add a vignette. And let me show you. What you do is I want to make this a little brighter. So I could just go out here and make this circle. Now it's kind of doing the opposite. As you can see, it's making it brighter out here and darker in here. Well, all I got to do is go down here and tap Invert Mask. Now it's way too bright, obviously, so we're going to pull the exposure down. I just want a little splash of light on that. Something like that. And when we're happy with that, hit close. This too is if you hold the Alt or Option key in, you could reset it. So You could reset it before you start if you have all these sliders from your previous adjustments all over the place. Okay, finally the last thing is the brush. And the brush has the same controls as the radial tool and the graduated filter. You could just paint exposure, you could paint contrast, whatever you want to paint on the picture. What we're going to do though is hold the Option key in again and hit reset again. Now see, it brought my exposure, everything zeroed out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just add a little bit of brightness in here. And again, you could resize this brush by hitting the left bracket key and the right bracket key. And I want it kind of big, so I just want to, as you can see the effect is it makes it a little brighter over there and maybe a little brighter over here. Okay, now I'd like these rocks back here in the right hand corner, those a little brighter too. So I could get a new brush, click new, and I'm going to make this a little smaller by hitting the left bracket key. And let's just make it a little. Now see, I went too far and it got up in the sky over here. You hold the Alt key down and you'll watch. See how the brush has the plus in the middle? Hit the Alt key and it turned into a minus. Now what we want to do though is that's way too big. So we're going to make that smaller. Make this one pretty small. And we hold that Alt key in and we could take away where we went and spilled over. And that's it. That's the brush key. If you wanted to, change affect the color in the sky with exposure, you could do that. Tint, you could paint in sharpness or paint in clarity. In this photograph, I'm really not interested in doing any of that. Having auto mask on helps it differentiate between when you're painting on, let's say, this rock and you don't get it on the sky. It helps. It's not perfect. As you can see, when I did these rocks, it bled over a little bit. But it's very easy to correct. You just hold the Alt key in and the brush turns into the minus sign in the middle, and you could take away where you messed up. And that's it. That's a pretty quick overview of 5 of these tools. Obviously, we didn't do the red eye tool, but we're going to do that in a future video. So what we're going to do now is this photograph is pretty much done. The next video, I'm going to get really this. I mean, this was pretty a quick overview of and going pretty quickly on how to develop a photograph. The next one is going to be more in depth, and I'm going to show you my actual workflow in the develop module from beginning to end, doing everything. And on that one we'll use every single control here, because in this one we didn't use any split toning and we didn't use tone curve. That will be in part 3, so be looking for that one. That'll be coming soon. Again, though, appreciate you watching. This is Anthony Morganti from anthonymorganti.com, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.